Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all doing great out there. So a lot of you are probably trying to get bigger arms. And when you're trying to build your arms, what most people think about are biceps. A lot of people are probably spamming a lot of bicep curls. Right? You could be doing a lot of regular bicep curls. You got incline bicep curls. You could be doing the great Bayesian curl. You could be doing drag curls. But a lot of people are probably focusing a lot on elbow flexion and bicep curls to get bigger arms. But what if I told you you might be going in the wrong direction? So we'll talk about what else you should do if you actually want to get bigger arms in this video. So the biceps are obviously important to have good looking arms. But if you want big arms, the tricep might be a muscle that you want to focus on a little bit more. The tricep actually makes up over 50% of your arm's mass, whereas the bicep only makes up about 30%. So building a big tricep will do a lot more to getting bigger arms. So let's talk about the tricep. The function of the tricep is elbow extension, which is just straightening out your arm. So the triceps run down the back of your arm, they attach it to your forearm here, and they straighten your arm by pulling your forearm around your elbow joint. Now I'm going to go over some of my favorite exercises to do here at my home gym for the triceps. I already did a video about tricep exercises you can do with no equipment, but this video will focus on the ones I like to do with the limited home gym equipment setup I do have. So the main function of your tricep, as we mentioned earlier, is elbow extension, which is straightening out your arm. Now, one important mechanical note to know, though, is that one of the heads of your triceps actually goes past your shoulder. What that means is that extending your arm up, forward and up, will actually put that head of your tricep in a stretch position, which means doing exercises with load in that stretch position will give you a little bit more hypertrophy. In addition, triceps being elbow extenders are actually a secondary muscle in a lot of your compound lifts for your chest, right, and your shoulders. So chest presses, overhead presses, all those will work your triceps as well, but they won't work that head that gets stretched in that overhead position as much. So if you're using compound lifts for most of your tricep work, but you want to add a little bit of additional tricep work in, then this is one of my favorites, and that's going to be the skull crusher. I know it's a scary name, but it's not that scary of an exercise, especially if you do it with dumbbells. So you just want to grab a pair of dumbbells. Ooh, too far back, guys. So a pair of dumbbells. Want to lift your arms about shoulder width apart. And what we want to start with is your elbows actually a little bit past vertical. This way, even when you're in fully extended position here, you still have some tension on the tricep. If you're completely vertical like this, the weight's now completely fully stacked over your joints and the muscles aren't really doing anything. But on this way, out here, you still have a little bit of tension even in your extension. So it gives you tension throughout the entire motion. So keeping your elbows in position, you don't want them flaring out or anything, keeping your elbows lined up over your shoulders. You're just gonna bend those elbows, bring those dumbbells back, and then extend back to that non-vertical position. Make sure your core is engaged so you're not getting big arc and lift like that. So your core should be stable. You don't need to be flat. Your back doesn't need to be flat against the bench, but keep it stabilized and just maintain your natural curvature. Oh, I'm a little blinded from staring up at that light. But anyway, so you could do this exercise with a barbell as well. I prefer an easy curl bar probably just to have a more comfortable wrist position, but I don't have a bar, so I'm using dumbbells. Plus I prefer dumbbells just because if you do need to bail, you can bail safely without having the bar above your head, which is where the skull crushing name comes from. So that's one of my favorite tricep exercises to do here at home. All it requires is a bench and 2 dumbbells. You might not even need a bench if you have a little step that you can lie on so your triceps, the dumbbells can go down below your head height. But that's exercise number 1, giving your tricep good work in that extended stretch position that doesn't get too much in your compound lifts. I did a previous video covering tricep exercises that you could do at home with absolutely zero equipment, so check that out if you'd like. But if you do have access to a cable machine, then tricep pushdowns are a classic popular exercise. Now you can use whatever implement you want. The classic is a straight bar. But if you do the straight bar, I like to get closer like this, so the cable is coming straight down. That way I get good resistance right here, earlier, and in a greater range of motion of the extension. If you stand back like this, now the resistance is coming a bit more from the front, and you don't get much resistance here, 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 and doesn't really kick in until you get to about here, in which case most of that resistance will be in this very limited range of motion. So I prefer to get a bit closer so you get a better resistance profile throughout a larger range of motion of the extension. Now, there's nothing wrong with the straight bar. It's great. But another popular implement a lot of people like to use is the rope. And a lot of people like the rope because it gives them a bit more range of motion and it allows your arm to extend in this slightly outward, more natural direction. Now, what I personally prefer to do, though, is to use no implement at all. I like to just grab this directly and work one hand at a time, because when you do one hand, you can't have any hand overcompensating for the other. Right? If you're doing the straight bar, one arm might be a little bit stronger. You don't know. You're using both hands to push the weight. But if you're doing them individually or unilaterally, then you know exactly what you're doing. So it's completely fine to do it facing the cable like this. That's how I did it for a very long time. But as we mentioned with the rope attachment, if you notice, your arms actually have a little bit of a outward angle when you extend them naturally. So since my cable is set here, it doesn't go side to side or anything. If I want to keep that natural, just more natural feeling extension, I actually face away. I face sideways to the cable and do my extensions out this way. This way I get that nice, natural outward angle. I'm up close here, getting a good resistance profile in an earlier, more stretched and larger range of motion. Keep your core tight. You want to keep your body basically stable and firm. Keep that elbow locked in place. And just do your extensions like that. Here's tricep extension again, just from a different angle. So I want to cover a popular dumbbell tricep exercise that you've probably seen before. You might be wondering why it's not on the list. So the tricep kickback is a very popular exercise, but I omitted it for a couple of key drawbacks. So let's talk about it. So on the tricep kickback, basically, is you bring your elbow back and lock out of your side here, and you do your triceps by extending this way against the resistance. So there are a couple of key drawbacks to this. One, as we covered in the past, right, dumbbells mean resistance is gravity, which means it's going straight down, which means from here you have absolutely zero resistance, not much, and you only really get that resistance mainly in that small contracting range there. So you get resistance through a limited range of motion. Two, not everybody has the mobility to hinge that far, right? To do the extension, in which case some people are like up like this, and now you're getting even less range of motion, less resistance profile. But more importantly, holding the weight back here is using your rear delt, right? And some lats. So you got some other muscles going on to keep the weight in this position, which means those muscles might get compromised before your tricep, especially if it's like a rear delt. So you have other muscles that might fatigue first and might limit the amount of weight you can be doing in this exercise. So for those reasons, I don't really prefer to kick back. It's not a bad exercise. There are just some limitations you should be aware of. So that covers my home gym tricep exercises. Between this and the video I made previously of tricep exercises with absolutely no equipment, you should have a pretty good arsenal of exercises to really build your triceps. Remember, the triceps are not a complicated muscle. They have one function, that's elbow extension. So as long as you're getting some good solid exercises in with your tricep in a more shortened position, and make sure you don't neglect doing the overhead lengthened position tricep exercises, you should be good to go. Also, the triceps are a big helper in a lot of your pressing exercises. So overhead press, chest presses, those are all going to get your triceps in as well, but not really as much in that lengthened position. Also remember, triceps comprises of over 50% of your arm mass. So if you want bigger arms, then definitely don't neglect the triceps and just do biceps. But that's the end of the video. Thanks so much for making it here. If you found it helpful or liked this information, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I should really find a way to integrate this engagement thing earlier in the video. It would probably help me out, but I'm new to this. Anyhow, thanks everyone. Have a great day.